what skills are in demand, what you need to hire the right talent, and how much money can you make in those IT roles? We're going to talk about this and so much more on today's episode of Bites and Banter with Cassie Benner from Robert Half. Cassie, let's get into it.
All right, let's jump right in.
On today's episode of Bites and Banter, we're joined by Cassie Benner, the branch director for Robert Half and lives in the Wisconsin area. How you doing today, Cassie?
Good, good. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. This is always an episode I look forward to. We're going to be talking about Robert Half's salary guide. Walk us through what is a salary guide, just for those who aren't familiar, before we really dive into the nuts and bolts and the meat of the good stuff.
Yeah, our salary guide is one of my favorite free tools that we can offer to our connections. It offers market intel and insights on a national level and also a local level. So when I go out and meet with our local partners, I'm able to really narrow in on the different roles and functional areas that they're hiring for, and share what that salary range might look like on a low to medium to high scale. And then aside from that, there's a ton of data in there about insights into hot trends on new jobs, especially in AI, of course, um, and emerging technologies. So, a ton of really cool intel in there.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite parts about the salary guide is the ability to really drill down to like where you live, right? And be able to get really specific with what you're looking for. Super useful. Now, the question that comes to mind, you mentioned it, and I want to start there because I think we could probably talk all day about AI, right?
Yeah.
But as salaries are coming out and you're seeing the trends, what are those high paying roles that companies are actually looking for?
Yeah, like the roles and skills where we're seeing the highest salary increases, as I mentioned, would be concentrated in AI, data science, and positions like AI ML engineers, AI architects. Um, and we're seeing about 4% year over year, more than double the overall average for tech in that space. And the reason really is that these roles sit at the center of digital transformation, automation efforts. So, this is including companies of all industries who are investing within AI tools, data driven decision making, and intelligent systems. And having a talent pool with hands on expertise is challenging because it is still relatively small.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those evolving worlds, right? In terms of the roles and the availability of those skill sets and what specifically, like, what are the titles of those roles? Like, as you guys are interviewing people, as people are coming in and to partner with you guys to find these roles, what are like the actual titles that they're looking for? Is it, is it AI engineer? Is it machine learning engineer? Like, what are those titles that people should be looking for in terms of those high paying roles?
Yeah, I love the topic of titles because it varies so much from company to company,
Mhm.
and that's something that I always share in the salary guides to really utilize the job description in there because a job title could mean something completely different from one company to the next. So when I
Yeah.
share these job descriptions within the salary guide, that's where we really want to hone in on what that salary range could be based on those responsibilities. Um, but I'm seeing anything from just a general AI consultant, which could mean so many things, but that's a title that I'm seeing thrown out there now in the market. I just had a client reach out asking what they could potentially call a role, and after talking through it, it was a broad enough role that we landed on AI consultant, and that's what they were going to post it for. Um, but then, of course, we are seeing like more specific titles like an AI engineer, AI architect. I mentioned data scientists before, but a lot of the data roles are in high demand right now too, and we're seeing a lot of fluctuations with what those job titles are looking like too. So it's been a little bit hard to really hone in on what job title should be used. So it's just a fun, controversial topic with most of our partners on what direction you go.
Yeah, I think I'm so glad you said that because I do think the job description, especially in a salary guide, is so critical to be able to understand what am I looking at, right? Because your title might be one thing, but when you're looking into the details of what are other people making,
Mhm.
for what I do,
Yeah.
it might not be like for like in terms of the title when you're looking on LinkedIn, those kind of things. So the salary guide's a good place to go to really dig into the weeds, right? And is
It,
security still kind of second in the race of high paying and high demand roles right now as well?
yes, and we're seeing quite a bit of those roles come across our desk as well, as risks increase in that space. Um, and something that's nice about the salary guide when and looking into responsibilities and where that salary really should fall. When you look at our salary guide, it gives other recommended job titles and descriptions right on that page of anything that would be in the similar realm. So if you're totally lost, it's just a quick scroll down, and then there's other options where you can see, oh, I wasn't quite on the right path here, but this role actually aligns with what I'm either looking to hire, what I'm looking to make in a role like this.
That's useful information. You never figuring out where where do I go to, understand is this right? Now let me kind of pivot because we see AI everywhere. It's 2026 buzzword, right? Whether you call
Mhm.
it agentic or generative AI is everywhere. So you would anticipate, right? A just a wide range of roles, and you would anticipate a lot of things in the market, but it seems like there's still a shortage, right? There's still these roles that organizations are struggling to fill. What's really driving that?
I think the main reason is that the tech is evolving faster than the talent can keep up. I mean, even with all the years of investment and upskilling and automation, the demand for these advanced skills that we're discussing now just can't be built overnight. So, there's really not a just a technical know-how that you need to have that strategic thinking, problem solving, and real experience applying uh, to be able to apply to the role too, to be able to make a quick impact when you join a role. So that's really where that shortage and gap is falling.
Makes sense, right? Technology is changing so quick, right? And the trends and you guys have another resource, right, that comes out around the skills
Mhm.
in the different industries and tech specifically, and this ties directly into the salary guide. And I think as you see those trends, it it would make sense, right, that it's hard to keep up with. Hey, what skills do we need? Because we didn't know we needed them yesterday, but today we need them, and it's really, really critical that we get them. So, what are organizations doing that really stand out from a like hiring, right? So, if I'm a candidate and maybe I'm an AI consultant or I have this skill set when it comes to machine learning or these different skills that are in high demand, what are employers doing to really attract them, to really bring those folks in and say, "Hey, we are the best place," and to get a yes, if you will, from those who have the right skill?
Yeah, and I know the salary guide talks a lot about the salary, but being competitive is not just about compensation. So that's another piece within the salary guide under trends is different areas that companies are adapting to make the roles that they're posting for more attractive to job seekers. So it's like creating a total package that would reflect what professionals value most. So flexibility, there's some really unique stats in there about remote capabilities and what candidates are looking for versus what companies are actually offering. So there's definitely a gap there because we're seeing a lot of companies bring more talent in house, but we have a lot of talent who's still seeking that flexibility piece. So they might be missing out on some talent there who could be a perfect match. But outside of that, there's benefits that go a long way too, like enhanced health coverage, mental well being support, extra PTO, or even just a flexible schedule in general. Like if we do need people to be on site and in person, what are you doing to offer a good
Yeah.
work life balance so that your employees are happy? And how can you advertise that for a role that you're posting for so you are attracting that talent? So those are some unique conversations that we're having with employers.
So generally speaking, it makes me wonder, what does like LinkedIn is so easy to see a million roles, right? And
Yeah.
uh, how has the increase in just giving visibility to what you're paying for that role, like how has that kind of shaped the market and how people look for jobs? Like how has that impacted things?
Yeah. I mean, we're the stats are showing that candidates want to see that salary transparency. It just builds that trust and also efficiency into that hiring process. So when companies do share that pay range up front, it just sets that tone for honesty, fairness. It does reduce that wasted time on both sides, gives that confidence that they'll be compensated fairly and within the range that they're looking for. Um, in my conversations with employers, they agree with that. Sometimes company policy makes that challenging because it can
Mm,
ruffle some feathers internally, posting a salary range and opening that up for everyone to see. So that's been a hesitation that I've been hearing quite often. So we're just doing our part to try and educate and share the value. And of course, there's going to be some barriers to overcome for those companies that haven't been doing that up until this
yeah.
point. But transparency has been key, and the data shows it.
That makes sense. I think even as a potential candidate is interviewing for a role, transparency both ways is important,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
imagine knowing, are we even within the ballpark for this candidate kind of helps the employer make a decision and the employee understands like, hey, here's where we're at, right? So if you go in, like this is the range, right? We can't go outside of that scope because it's what we can pay.
yeah.
Now, as candidates are navigating this job market and you see LinkedIn all the time, there's people who are posting like, hey, I was part of the Amazon recent decisions to lay people off, or
Mhm.
I'm just looking for a new opportunity, and you see all these open to work and people navigating roles. What significance have you seen in terms of the trends on the value of things like certifications versus, a traditional path of like a 4-year degree? Like, has there been any shift in terms of candidate hireability within those realms?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Certifications are definitely gaining ground, and in some cases, they are outpacing a traditional degree. Um, what we've been seeing is a shift towards skills based hiring. So, where you have that proven practical expertise that matters more than academic credentials alone. So, with employers moving to close critical skills gaps in areas like we mentioned before, AI, and then cloud, cybersecurity, data. Those certifications can offer a clear, verifiable way to access their ability to actually make an impact right away when they join the organization. So it's a unique topic because there's a lot of certifications out there. So
Mhm.
understanding which ones are actually
Yeah.
sought after and which ones companies actually look for is really helpful to know, and that's something that the salary guide does go into detail about. So, according to our salary guide, those certifications like AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner, Microsoft Azure Solutions Architect, um, and the list goes on and on. There's several that are really attractive right now, so that's something to be mindful of because there's so many out there and you could go and fill your resume up with certifications, but if they're not reputable and if they're not applicable, that it might
Mm.
not be worth your time.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to know, like, for somebody who maybe is in that boat of they're looking for a role, maybe they've just recently started looking, or maybe they're in that boat of like it's been months.
Mhm.
How like do certifications without necessarily having the practical hands-on experience for what those certifications may be relevant to in terms of the day-to-day job, something will that help? Is that like something that is beneficial? Or is it really, hey, you really need the experience, the skills, as you say, skill-based hiring, as someone
Yeah.
who doesn't hire, right, or screen resumes a ton? I'd be curious to hear that unpacked a little bit more, right? Like, hey, you're unemployed, you went and got the certification. Yes, we're interested. Or no, you really need the experience too. Like, what does that look like for somebody who's navigating hiring?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the certifications can show that you can apply the knowledge immediately. So you'll get what you're paying for when you bring someone in with that. Um, that's a tough question because sometimes it is a case by case scenario where you
Yeah.
do need someone who has had that background. But to manage that gap, where maybe you had it, a certification is absolutely a good way to get that foot in the door, to show that you can apply it immediately, and with the right employer. That could be another incentive to help on their end bridge that gap, bring someone on who just needs a hands-on experience, has already proved that they can do this work through that certification process and then develop them with the team there. So it goes both ways, being able to show that you can do the work, but on the employer side, being able to show that you can bring them in, allow them to get that hands-on experience, and that's also attractive to job seekers too. It's a good way to grow your team.
I have a friend who recently started a new career, and he actually was engaged through Robert Half. You know, they reached out to him, and it was because of one of those certifications.
Mhm.
Right? He didn't have the exact skill match, but he was in the general field. I think he ended up getting what was called a contact center architect, right? And he wasn't a contact center architect; he was a network guy, but he had the skill set. And so I think as I hear you talking about kind of the case by case, it makes a lot of sense that you need both, but there are times when, hey, you have that core knowledge and that certification might, you know, open the eyes of somebody who's
Mhm.
recruiting for a specific role, and then all of a sudden for him, his life literally changed because he had the right things on his resume and he was consistent at updating that, right? And he was willing to listen when somebody reached out about an opportunity. So just
Yeah.
interesting to hear
No,
those
that's
things. And
great. I love those stories because that's where we really come in to advocate for our talent,
yeah,
because we hear stories about people being impacted by layoffs, and they're trying to kickstart their career maybe a different direction, and they're showing the work that they're able to obtain these certifications and showing the drive, so then we could really advocate and market them to our clients who we think they could be a good match for, that know that we, on our end, we'll know that those clients have a gap in that space, and share this individual, for example, and explain that they've done the work. All they need is a team to maybe develop them in XYZ, and this could be so
yeah.
beneficial on both sides.
Yeah, and he gets to use new tools now. He gets to do new things. And, you know, he told me because I saw him yesterday, he said, you know, his insurance went from like, oh, it was going to be $1,000 a month at his previous employer. Now it's going down to like $80 a month for him and his wife. Like, absolutely wild. Like, all these really cool things. Because to your point, the recruiter that he had worked with in the past for other roles saw this opportunity, kind of knew his background and his experience, and just reached out, and he was willing to listen. So it's just such a cool full circle moment for me because he is one of my good friends, and I just love thinking about kind of how those pieces fall in. Now, let me pivot again. We talked a little about technical skills, certifications, right? And the experience. What are those things that technology leaders who are hiring that maybe aren't technical? You know, the skills that are not necessarily, C++ and you've been in this contact center solution or you've been in, what are those? I don't like the word soft skills, but for better lack of better terms, those human skills. What are those skills that employers are looking for right now as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And those strong people skills certainly stand out. So what employers are looking for is someone who can collaborate, communicate well, lead through change, and especially be able to adapt. Adaptability is so important right now, and have those strong problem solving skills and good emotional intelligence. So things that are hard to see on a resume, but that again, that's where the benefit of working with someone like Robert Half comes in, because we're getting to know our talent through, of course, our interview process and our placement process, but also a full vetting process where we have those professional references that we can dig into and help grab those testimonials about those, as we call them, soft skills, and share them with our partners to highlight how that person can bring value just outside of those technical skills.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any role in tech where flexibility right now would not be critical and
Right.
adaptability. It's just the way things are changing, critical. Now, it seems like in general, and the salary guide, I think maybe kind of points this out, and there's probably some data around it. Uh, it seems like more companies are saying, "Hey, let's go the contract route. Let's go this route." So it makes me wonder, like, hey, why are more companies, going the contractor route and working with companies like Robert Half and pulling people in, whether it's a temporary basis or temp to hire or even direct to hire? Like, what is kind of driving that trend?
Yeah, I'd say they turn to utilizing contract talent, primarily because it offers that flexibility, but also speed. You get
Mhm.
access right away to highly specialized skills, And then also, you don't have that long term financial commitment of a full time hire right off the bat. So, in these fast moving areas like AI, data science, cybersecurity, those contract professionals can help close those skills gaps pretty quickly, keep those
Mhm.
projects on track, those critical projects that need to stay on track. And then, as far as contract to hire, it's a nice trial period for potential full time hires. So, you have the ability to assess their performance, that cultural fit, before making a longer term investment. So it's a good way to help align budgets with the project needs. You pay for that expertise only when and where it's needed. So a ton of flexibility to keep things moving along, and you have that continuity of those projects that you're working on. I mean, I could go on and on about how it affects internal
Yeah,
staff too that they already have in place, and not burning them out where the workload comes becomes too much. That's a
yeah.
big piece of it too. We hear often. I just had a meeting earlier today where the internal staff is burnt out and they just need help for the next couple of months to get these projects across the finish line, and they want to retain those people, and that's where some contract staffing could be really beneficial.
That sounds very, very familiar. Some of the things that I'm saying, just even with key projects and key initiatives and key, work that's going on, just maybe that work has a finish line, right?
Yeah.
and and you're developing, I don't know, an application, you're developing a chain, like literally the development work, right? Developers is a good example of a
Mhm.
skill that's never going to go away in terms of demand. It seems that way every time you guys release the new year salary guide. It's like, oh, they need developers, right? They need developers. And I I feel like there's so many projects, to your point, that rely on developers, that's such a good example of something where organizations maybe need to get that through the finish line. They'd only have so many hours in a day for their team to do the
Mhm.
work. Bring in that supplemental effort can really benefit getting that project over the finish line, right? Definitely on something like that.
Yeah, and as those projects evolve, if it's determined that you actually do need someone to bring on full time, that contract to hire model is great. You have that
Yeah.
flexibility to bring them on as a part of a full time member of your team.
Makes a lot of sense, right? You have that flexibility to say, "Hey, maybe this is an ongoing need," or maybe they're a rock star. Maybe
That
they're a rock
happens,
star.
yeah.
You're like, "Oh, I don't know if I wanna lose them. Even if we don't have work right now, we will in the future," which is also a good reason to consider contract work as an employee, right? Is, hey, organization falls in love with you, that contract work, maybe it doesn't stay contract, right?
Mhm,
Uh, let me ask now kind of about the hiring process, because I think you see this more and more with on LinkedIn, people posting about like, I applied for all these jobs and I haven't got anybody to look at my resume, or I've only got a certain amount of callbacks. So that's one piece of like, I wonder what's going on there. How is AI playing into the screening process?
mhm.
And it also makes me wonder, how important is the time it takes in terms of turnaround time to follow up with a candidate, to get an offer out to them, to get them started? Like, walk me through kind of what trends you're seeing in that area in terms of the hiring process itself.
Yeah, so internal hiring processes for companies can be more lengthy, just due to the bandwidth of their internal hiring team and what that may look like. So they might be missing out on really good talent who is available for a short period of time because good talent goes really quick. So that is where we come in a lot. Where we're consistently sourcing top talent, and having those conversations with those in our network. So when a partner of ours needs to fill a role, whether contract or direct, whatever direction they would like to go, we have those people at our fingertips and can help move that process along a little quicker because we've already done most of the legwork. Whereas if someone's applying internally for a role, then they have to make it through the applicant tracking system, of course. I make it to the internal recruiter to see their profile for the very first time, do a screening, pass them along to the hiring manager, coordinate with their schedules, and getting that across the finish line internally can be lengthy at times, especially if it's a backfill. If someone unfortunately departed the organization and now they're short on staff and already limited on time with the day-to-day responsibilities, a hiring manager is going to be quite busy. That can just make the process go longer and longer. So we see that often. It comes up quite a bit. Usually when people engage with us, they're in this cycle that they can't get out of. And that's where we really come in to help to bridge that gap and take over that process and help moving across the finish line a lot faster and create such a better candidate experience because it takes time to apply, it takes time to interview,
Yeah.
and it can be exhausting. So to be able to move that along quicker with transparency, fast feedback, it really creates a lot better of experience and a good brand name for the company hiring too, even if they don't get the role sometimes, if they had a good experience interviewing and meeting with the team and it's not always the right match, but we can walk away and have, new connection and feel good about how that process went. It's really beneficial.
I think, that partnership makes so much sense in terms of the experience for the candidate, because if you
Mhm.
have a bad experience in that whole process and you have multiple offers, that's gonna go into your decision, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
100% gonna play into it, so having that ability to, have someone who's kind of really working as an advocate and on your behalf and getting that process moved very quickly makes a lot of sense, and that candidate, back to that friend that got the job, and
Mhm.
he had interviewed for other jobs and he didn't get the jobs, or he wasn't necessarily interested in the jobs if it was offered. But all through that process, the person that he was working with on Robert Half's side was actually giving him feedback on, like, hey, here, in the interview process, here's kind of what they're looking for. Here's what, they're really the skill set. And now if you go to apply that on your own, you're not going to know that.
Yep.
You're not
Exactly.
going to really, all these other things are nice to haves, but this is really what they're looking for, right? For you to be able to bring to the team. So I just, again, not to harp on that example, but it's just such a good example of
It is a
how
good example. Yeah. Yeah.
partnering can really benefit both parts of the, equation when it comes to hiring. So
Yeah.
the
I think
salary guide's out there. We
yes.
are going to link it for everybody who wants to, check it out, and highly encourage people to dig in to see, hey, what's going on in my role, in my world, what kind of roles are out there that I might be interested in, and how might that impact my salary. What are the trends? What are the, need to knows that really stand out from the salary guide that we haven't covered yet?
I know there's some unique intel in there about, to the topic for job offers, negotiation. On both sides, negotiation mistakes. So take a look at that. I think you want to make sure that you're not having any missteps in understanding pay expectations, whether the candidate side or the hiring manager side. Um, you don't want to under offer someone in that hiring process or as a candidate you don't want to
Mhm.
also undervalue yourself. That would be a poor negotiation mistake. So some good intel in there. I think that's really important to take a peek at. And outside of that, it's almost too much good data. I mean, you just need to take some time and play around in there and see what's impactful for you. I think something that a lot of hiring managers like to take a look at is the unique perks that different companies are offering, and that's a good topic to dive into because sometimes those out of the box ideas you hadn't considered could help you attract more talent. So doing a deeper dive into those stats could be beneficial because it doesn't always come down to just salary.
Now that makes sense, and I think, as I think about being a potential employer, right, you might even see things that you do offer, you're just not calling out in your job
Mhm.
description, right? Or you're not
Absolutely.
putting in front of your candidates early enough to give them visibility, and I wonder how many times that happens, like, "Oh, we do that, like, we reimburse for fitness," or whatever it is, right? Those little things that could put you over the edge. Now,
Yeah, absolutely.
Cassie, you've been great, and Salary Guide's an awesome resource, we talked a lot about it. As we do with all of our guests, we are gonna talk about you for a second, and we're gonna ask you a final send-off question. If you could turn back time, you get a remote, you hit rewind, you could go talk to younger Cassie, what words of wisdom or advice would you share with younger Cassie?
Yeah. Well, I would certainly tell my younger self to just embrace adaptability. I know we talked about that a little bit before. But I would say every role I've been in my career in the staffing and recruiting industry has just taught me to be very open to change. It's constantly evolving. And I think that really is applicable to every industry too. And then, like what we talked about before with those soft skills, I would tell myself early in my career to just focus on continuing to build strong relationships and everything else will fall into place and not to stress about
Mm,
all the little things, because if you're open to change, you're building strong relationships, and you have the work ethic, things will fall into place.
I love that so much. Adaptability, embrace relationships, and trust that things will happen even if they don't happen in your time frame. Cassie, you've been a pleasure to talk to. We appreciate you coming on and diving into the nitty gritty of the salary guide. And for those of you listening, check it out, download it. Please check if you're looking for a job, if you're an employer. Uh, it's one of the best resources you can use to figure out, are you being competitive? What do you need to do to get the right talent in? And what is the talent looking for in the market? So, Cassie, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. We will catch you on the next episode of Bites of Banter.